Welcome back to Speaking Truth to Goodness, where this season we're bringing in candidates from Portland's City Council race for in-depth and heartfelt conversations. I'm Patty Robron, joined by my co-host Jerry Atkin, and today we're excited to introduce Chris Olson, a passionate advocate and candidate for City Council in District 2. Chris Olson is not just running for office, he's mobilizing for change. With a robust background in community organizing within the nonprofit sector and deep involvement in progressive political campaigns, Chris is committed to pushing forward substantial reforms in housing, economic justice, transportation, climate action, and community safety. Today, he'll share how his extensive activism integrates with his campaign promises, like creating an expansive urban trail network and instituting a Renters' Bill of Rights to protect our community's most vulnerable. Join us as Chris discusses his vision for a more equitable and sustainable Portland, his commitments to rejecting fossil fuel money, and his plans to enhance community safety without compromising on justice. Let's explore how his policies and personal ethos aim to reshape Portland for the better. Here it is. Jennifer Park?
Jennifer Park?
Yes.
It was Jennifer. Nice, yeah.
There you go.
Been working a lot with Jennifer. It's been really great.
Oh, good.
Yes, yeah. Her, myself, Samir Kanal, and Marty Glickman have been doing these Coffee with Candidate events together. And it's just
so cool.
Yeah, just an opportunity for us to like sit down, try just to meet people one-on-one. You know, we're not giving speeches or anything like that. It's just come have coffee with us and talk with us about what your thoughts are, concerns are, and come meet us. So
that cohort you just mentioned, is that somebody from each of the 4 districts?
No, that's we're all just District 2. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that, I just heard recently this idea of a slate. Do you consider that a slate?
No, not officially.
Okay.
I definitely like have I would say my allies, my friends. You know, there's people that I would like want to work with and do events with. I mean, ranked choice voting is turning this into a very different election for so many things. And I knew early on what would happen is there were like groups of people would like start to form. And now in our district, we have 23 candidates. Oh. So it's a lot of candidates right now. Not all of them are active. Like there is definitely, I have a spreadsheet of like keeping track of all the candidates. And I just have like not going to work with them, people that I'm like, we could do some stuff together, but you know, and then the people that I'm like, these are on my side. Yeah, these are allies. We agree on policy and values like 90% of the time. And then we have people who I probably think are just, they're not either campaigning anymore or they're, probably not going to make it to the deadline getting their donors. Okay. So, yeah.
So one of the most exciting things about these conversations is to realize, I'm trying to say, when was the last time I was excited about a local election?
Yeah.
That would be never.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I know.
Am I excited about this campaign? Over the moon excited. Because the possibility of having real representative government is real. Not just a dream, not just we push it a little bit to the left, hold it in. It's like,
right.
No, it's like this is a brand new world.
Yeah.
And as you talk about community organizing, the level of community organizing that's necessary to take an electorate that is completely disengaged from the process, believing they have no power.
Yeah.
How do we convince them to come back because it's a new game?
Yeah, it's true.
The possibilities are extraordinary. And one of them that Andrew pointed out is when you have 3 city council people from a district, it's not winner take all.
No, it's not. No.
It's not slash and burn.
No.
And the process of mutual education that's gone on, working with other candidates, creates this pool of connected, now much broader in their understanding of how all these issues fit together. So it's an exciting moment for Portland. I hope we step in and take the bait.
I hope so too. I think I think what I'm discovering is there is definitely those people right now who, a lot of them are in power, or they're close to the people in power, who are hoping that this will just be like business as usual and the voter turnout won't be as high as it normally is or whatnot. And, I would say they're not going to do voter education because everyone's going to do voter education because they want to get votes. But, like that does benefit everyone, including people who are not trying not to get as many people turned out. But I think, the only way, I was talking with my campaign manager, I was just talking with you up on the way up here, is that, to really bring some change, we're going to need to, I was like, we just need to have some more money, and, that takes some time for the candidates that we like for us to get that. But at the same time, I told my campaign manager the other day, it's like, we're not going to be able to win unless we organize. It doesn't matter all the money we have in the world. We have to get on the ground and get out the vote. And it was amazing just to see back in the primary where there was only a 30% turnout in Multnomah County for voting. So, I mean, we're definitely, it's going to be higher for, the general election as it always or normally is. I mean, I guess fingers crossed too. I don't know if Biden stays in the race or not. That'll probably affect turnout as well. Mm-hmm. But I like, if we can really focus our efforts on getting out the vote, that is how we can really make change. And the fact is that even in my district for the Multnomah County race, the progressive candidate got first place, even though there's going to they're going into the general now, but got first place with the voter turnout that lower turnout that they had. So, voter turnout we generally benefit progressives. So, I think if we can really push for as high as a maximum voter turnout as we can really make a difference. So, organizing will be the only way to beat them.
So you're saying, if more people vote, there's more chances we're going to get a progressive candidate. Yeah,
traditionally that's the rule of thumb. The more people vote,
by that,
progressives win.
Could we kind of infer that more people in Portland, at least, hold progressive values?
Oh yeah, I mean this is not like running in a swing state. It's just running into who is I don't want to say pretending to be a progressive, who truly holds progressive values and who is just in name only on it. So
like using the buzzwords.
We'll call it a Pinot because it's rhino. So it's like progressive in name only. Or the other thing was faux-gressives, I've heard before.
Faux-gressive, that's funny.
Yeah, it's a funny one.
I just realized they're progressives and regressives.
Yeah, exactly how it works too.
So it seems to me that I missed one of the interviews. I was out of town, but there seemed to be a heavy tendency for people who have a lot of experience with community organizing. Mm-hmm. And for government to work, community organizing is obviously the key, and in getting out the vote. So I feel good about the fact that the people who are thinking about that are thinking about it in a progressive way, as building power.
Yeah.
So Confom's a really good friend of mine, and I love how she uses politics to organize. And but if we use those skills, the possibility of getting our voters out is great.
Yeah.
Seems to me.
Yeah, I think that's what we got to do. We don't have any other option, really. The people that are going to benefit from our policies are going to be the people that are less likely to vote, period. That's just how it works. So that's the only option we have, is to make sure. And yes, we do live in Oregon, which is great, where we get our ballots in the mail, and that's fantastic. But we got to make sure they're getting it back into the mail. It's a really critical step to do that. And it turns out you can mail everybody a bunch of ballots, and only 30% of them will vote in a primary election at least. So we need to do a better job of pushing getting the vote out for the November election, no matter what.
Now, is this my pessimism? But when you say that we got 30% turnout for a primary,
yeah,
to my pessimistic brain about voting in this country, That sounds pretty damn good.
Yeah.
Am I wrong?
Well, I mean, yeah, in general, is that good? Yeah, I mean, that's not like terrible, but we really want I would have loved Shannon Singleton to knock out both Sam Adams and Jesse Burke at the same time in District 2. Yeah, so I think 30%'s fine, but if we can get more people caring about our county commission race, then we can hopefully knock out Sam Adams for good after in November. So I mean, there's going to be a lot of getting out the vote especially in District 2 to really push progressive agenda, because right now in District 2, most of the top fundraisers, I would say, are on your center left side of things.
Okay.
Except for maybe like 2 of them. I would say of the top 5, 3 of them are like on the center left side of things. You have Dan Ryan and a few others. So, so those are the people who are leading in funds at the moment. And we got to get, my thing is I've had a lot of success amongst young voters, and I'm, first of all, I'm totally new to this game. I've done one little stint in voter registration project in Southern California, and we can get into that. But after that, I've worked in nonprofit spaces, and I've been in Portland since November of 2020. So it's not been a super long time that I've been here. But I fell in love with the city so much, and this new form of government gets me so excited to particularly be a representative of the people. I'm not, I wouldn't have run under the old commissioner system because I just don't want to be in charge of the Water Bureau or Peabody or something like that. I want to actually just be able to talk with people and put policies in place that make their lives better. So for us to move forward, it's going to have to be through organizing, getting out the vote like we haven't seen before in Multnomah County. And I think there is a desire for that, especially, however the national election goes. If it's going to be Trump versus Biden, Trump somebody else, that's going to be so important too. So I think in at least Portland, Oregon, Multnomah County, I think the top of the ticket and the bottom of the ticket can come together and try to get people out to vote. So, yeah.
I mean, I'm all for that.
Yeah. Because I think 2020, the turnout here was 70, 80% for. Okay. Yeah. So I'd like to. I think it was 70. So I'd like to push that up to 75, 80. That could probably get us there. So.
If I were campaigning,
yeah.
I think I've been thinking about this over the whole time, but it's voters don't believe that their vote matters. They may go through the motions of doing it, but in their hearts they know that city council has not been responsive to the population. So the message to people as we reach out to them is that this is a new moment where we can truly have your voice matter.
Yeah, that's the message.
And if I'm elected, your voice will matter. It'll matter to me, and it'll matter to the city. Breaking down the sort of post-COVID, I invented a new word just recently, unhunkering. People have hunkered down, and they haven't come out of the trenches in the way. So we have to teach people to unhunker. Yeah. It's possible. It can get better. It's not just a slide into oblivion.
Oh, yeah.
Unless we let it be.
Yeah. So. I completely agree with that. I think we're seeing unhunkering happen.
The first person to use my word.
Yeah, I'll use it. Yeah.
I'm so excited.
I think we're seeing unhunkering happen, and I very quickly, I can say very quickly, because obviously with the genocide going on in Gaza right now, it's been a mobilizing issue for many, many people. And I personally, I was the first candidate in my district to come out and say something about the conflict and about the genocide, in support of a ceasefire, et cetera, et cetera. And I said in my statement, it's hey, look, I'm a candidate for city council, like when then I'll be like one of 3 candidates, like or one of 3 people if elected. Like my voice does not particularly matter, but I will just add my voice to like the millions of people that are calling for a ceasefire, and just put that there. So as we've like that movement, that was in December of last year, I shared that, and I was like, oh man, I'm probably like too late. A ceasefire will happen in the next couple of weeks, and I don't I don't want to be seen as, I was concerned about being seen as like jumping on like some sort of bandwagon or something like that. Well, I was incredibly wrong, unfortunately, about how long that was gonna this was gonna take, and we're sitting here in July, and it's still going on with really no end in sight. And
so I really believe we were going to get immigration reform in 2008.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I get it. Yeah. Anyway, but it's been so. Anyway, it's so that I've seen people mobilize out of the concern for Gaza more than I think I've ever seen any movement happen in the last. So I guess since Black Lives Matter, since 2020. So I think that there are people that are waking up because they're jumping on to these protests. They're coming out. I started to attend protests in January is when I think started to attend protests, and been going on from there. I attended the PSU library protest back when they just before they occupied the building, and then I think it lasted 7 days, 8 days, and then the following Monday or Tuesday when they all left and evacuated the building, I was there that day, and that was when the cops kettled us around a corner, and down, if you know where at the park blocks where there's Southwest Hall Street, which is just like a pedestrian only zone that is right there between 2 buildings on campus. I think it's like 2 dorms. The cops kettled people down that pedestrian only street after telling them to leave for a couple hours, and I was actually first outside of the kettle, and they left me alone, and then I ran around the building to get onto Hall Street, and I was just recording, just seeing what was going on, and then within 10 minutes of being there, I suddenly just see out of the corner of my eye a car coming down the pedestrian walkway, and it's revving its engine, is coming forward, and then did you not hear about this, or vaguely remember it?
It was pretty hidden, I think.
Yeah, I think people didn't really talk about it too much, but I got the footage of everything that's happened. But he started, coming down there, and somebody yelled "car," and a lot of people started clearing their way. People were screaming. I got out of the way pretty quickly, but from my perspective, he was coming, and he was stopping, and then when he stopped one time, somebody smashed the back window of his car, and that shattered, and then somebody opened the door. I guess he left his doors unlocked, and then then they tried to drag him out, and he sprayed bear mace. It's this whole thing.
Whoa.
And so so I shared about that on Twitter and Instagram, and that's when I got a big chunk of my followers and my reach out there, and it's all to say it's that's the kind of things that people want to see. They want to see their politicians actually caring about the things that they care about, and moving and fighting for the kind of world that is better for everybody. And that was not, I'm not being oh wow, I went out to the protest, cool, but it's just but I'm not trying to toot my own horn here, but we actually have to have people who are willing to have skin in the game about these decisions that are being made. And I feel for so long, and this as a person who's running, is I have skin in the game. Almost every one of my policies that I have on my platform honestly affects me in some way. Sure. I'm a renter, so a renter's bill of rights is going to be super helpful for me.
I am too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. When I have stopped the sweeps, look, no one wants to see people suffering on the streets. So, stopping the sweeps, as I've told people, it's not about just it's not about keeping tents on the street. It's about stopping the sweeps that waste money, that keep people houseless, And so that's what's actually keeping people on the streets.
Yeah.
And then I want to reallocate that money to open emergency shelters. Like, that's what we need to do to get people off the streets, like these nighttime shelters, so that people aren't sleeping on the streets at night. And so that affects me because I would like to have a city where I don't see human suffering just like out in the middle of nowhere, and we actually take care of each other, So
That'd be nice.
it's a net positive, like a network of urban trails. Like, I'm a biker, so I biked here and want to be able to bike around the city easily and safely. The CEI hub, the critical energy infrastructure over in Linton, if we have an earthquake, I'd like to be able to breathe air. So, maybe not
maybe not be on the news for the greatest city disaster in American history.
But I'd like to be able to breathe air if an earthquake happens. So I'm just, I don't feel like any of my policies are too far-fetched, because I want them to create a better and safer world for everyone. So,
hey. If we can't get behind the idea of a better and safer world for everyone, I'm going to say we're doing human wrong.
Yes, well, we are. That's where we are right now.
For me.
Well, you're part of everyone.
Yeah.
Gary.
I am.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't
Yes, you
think so.
are.
That's not what they taught me.
Yeah.
They tell me it's me against everybody else.
That's true.
That's true. That is.
That's not true?
No, it is not. Turns out.
Oh, good.
Turns out we're all in this together.
So I was just wanting to sort of swing back to what work you do and your connection to nonprofits and what that work part of your life has been like, what you've learned from it.
Yeah, so like I said, I've been in the nonprofit sector for over a decade. I've worked in community organizing and communications. I lived in the city of Chicago for 4.5 years, worked there in the inner city, saw a lot of families, struggling paycheck to paycheck, trying to make ends meet, helped people dealing with all kinds of, tragedies and, struggles, we would just do everything from trying to help people get food stamps to, just being with kids. This one family, this dad would just keep running, he'd get paid weekly from his job, and almost every weekend he would just leave and go to the south side and go get some crack and go smoke crack and disappear for 48, 72 hours, and then come back home, and they're struggling with addiction, and they're just real people whose real lives were affected, and resources were not being allocated adequately to take care of these people, and so we had to do our best to help them, and so that really impacted the way I saw the world. I also did some community organizing, a voter registration project in Southern California, where it was 2012, and I did a voter registration project for the Democrats, where we basically went through the voter rolls in a assembly district and a Senate district, and we flipped them from being registered majority Republican to being registered majority Democrat. So it was a really great opportunity. That
just by registering more people.
Yeah, well, by registering more people, and the Republicans had a little sneaky little plan that they were doing. So shocking.
So where were you in California?
This was in Riverside. Just outside of LA. So
it's probably pretty warm there today.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So summer day like this, 107, 108.
The Inland Empire is definitely a warmer place to be.
It is. Yeah, it is a warmer place to be. So, yeah, I lived there for almost a year, a little over a year before I went to Chicago. But what I was saying, so I went door to door canvassing, getting people registered to vote. What the Republicans were doing is they were paying people per voter registration card that they got. So we were getting paid by the hour, knocking door to door, just getting people registered. Hey, and we'd have the voter rolls, and we were asking people hey, I just want to confirm your registration. You're Maria, whatever. Oh, are you a Republican? And then Maria would go I'm not a Republican. This isn't right. I'm and she's I'm a lifelong Democrat. I've always been there. Why am I a registered Republican? what kept happening is these people, the Republicans were paying people to turn in these voter registration cards marked Republican. They would essentially set up a table outside of like a Walmart or a Target or some big box store, and they would say, "Oh, we have a petition for, more money for schools or some climate change or something like that." And they would have people fill out the petition, and the petition was like your name, your address, your signature, all your date of birth, all the basic information you would need for a voter registration card. And then people would go back home, fill out the voter registration cards, check the box Republican,
What?
and then turn it in.
How's that not illegal?
Well,
Okay.
probably was. Probably
was.
I mean, yeah. So first of all, you can in California register someone to vote separately, so that's not illegal.
Okay.
We were registering people to vote. Like I was literally filling out the form, but we do an attestation where, like at the bottom, where you have to fill out your, name, your address, and sign it yourself that I helped this person register. Even give your driver's license number. So that's very secure. But if you don't do that, you can just make it up, or you can just say, "Oh, these were filled out by other people by themselves," and just turn it in. So,
Wow.
yeah. So it was crazy, and so I think it was majority registered, like 54, Republican at the time, and then we were over 60% registered Democrat by the time we were done that summer. So
Wow.
yeah, yeah. So it was a great thing. Yeah.
In some places, I don't know if California, if they're registered as a Republican, but they consider themselves Democrat, they're going to have troubles voting in the primaries.
Yeah,
right?
I think Oregon. I mean, I think California is an open primary. I'm pretty
Okay, so
sure.
maybe
I'm
not
pretty
as
sure it's an
big
open
issue.
primary. So, but I mean, even if not, they probably just didn't care about people's voting in the primary.
Yeah.
Probably someone just got if it is a closed primary state, they just got a Republican ballot. I was like, oh, that's weird. And probably threw it away, and didn't have the opportunity to vote because that's what they're trying to do, disenfranchise these people. So that was, I'm happy with the work that I did there. I'm glad it done. It showed me the power of community organizing, and going door to door, meeting people where they're at. It's what we need to do.
So it makes you extremely well qualified to do what I was talking about earlier,
Yes.
which is to know how to talk to people about things,
Yeah.
comfortable in doing it,
Yeah.
understanding the importance of it.
Yeah.
So you were in Riverside sweating. You were in Chicago probably sweating.
During the
You
summer.
came to the Northwest so you could
I don't know,
stop
when it was
sweating.
0, I wasn't sweating in Chicago. When I was looking at that train monitor and I was like, oh, it's 0 today. Man, that's nice.
So the first,
No, it's so much warmer than it was.
So much warmer than the negative 10 it was yesterday.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I hail from Wisconsin. and
Yes,
Minnesota,
so you
I'm
know,
with
you
ya.
know.
Yeah.
the first time I was in Chicago, it was in April.
Oh, see,
and
it's a
there
nice
were
time to go.
Mounds of black snow.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yes.
Yes, yeah.
And the sign says, "Welcome to Chicago, Mayor Richard Daley." And I should have just turned around, but I didn't. So how'd you get to Portland, and then what have you been doing in your time here?
Yeah, so I have got to Portland. So literally March of 2020, I was
Great timing.
Yes, I was living in Florida at the time.
Well, dang, you've been all over.
I've been all over. Yeah, actually, I grew up in Florida.
One step
where I
ahead
grew
of the
up.
law.
Yeah,
Oh, maybe that's
what
what's
it
going
is.
on. We
Yeah.
should watch
You
this
grew up
one.
in Portland. What part?
No, not in Portland. I grew up in Florida.
In Florida.
Yeah, I
Oh,
grew up in
wow.
Florida. Yeah. So I grew up in Florida. Very conservative, religious family. We'd listen to so I was homeschooled up until 8th grade, and I'd listen to Rush Limbaugh at lunchtime, and we actually listened to Glenn Beck first, and then Rush Limbaugh. And Glenn Beck started in Tampa. Most people don't know that.
Okay.
That's where he started, and his original local show was there, and then it would go on to Rush Limbaugh after that. And so, like I said, very conservative household. And spent many years what?
She's making faces.
I know.
because
I see the
Her
faces.
history may, in fact, parallel yours.
Oh, okay.
Only be way worse.
Could be. It depends. in 2011, I was like 20 years old, still living in Florida. I ended up getting diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. From that point, I was like, I don't have any health insurance. Obamacare had not kicked in yet, so I had a pre-existing condition. Couldn't get on any insurance right away. But my dad was living in California at the time, so I moved out to California. And that's where I ended up getting the job there and stuff like that. But yeah, I moved out to California, and I was able to get on their pre-existing condition insurance plan that California had in place already. And so I wouldn't have like even had insurance unless I'd lived in a more progressive state that had like health care that I could get on. And unfortunately, Obamacare kicked in the next year, and I was able to, been able to be on insurance since then. And so that was one thing that impacted me too, is like realizing like the work that Obama did to get the ACA passed and living in a state again that has healthcare. So that was a big impact on me.
Right, you saw the direct benefit to you of that healthcare being extended to more people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, damn.
Yeah, no, it was really impactful. But still in like a religious home. So I ended up moving to Chicago, where I actually went to Bible college for 4 years. Yeah. Did you do the same thing?
No, but I feel ya.
I feel ya. You know where it is. Yeah.
My husband was a Bible college guy.
Nice. Yeah.
The first time around.
First time around. Yeah.
In recovery, I just want to say.
Yeah, in recovery. Yeah, we're all in recovery. Yes, we're recovering from evangelicalism. So
yes.
So, but
Evangelicals Anonymous.
Yeah, I know.
That was
right?
round 2 for me.
Yeah, that was round 2.
I started in a doomsday cult and went. My way out was through 10 years of evangelicalism.
Oh, okay.
So, but I'm out. I did it.
Look, I mean, my parents almost joined a cult. That's a funny story. I'll just do a quick rabbit trail. There was this guy who was like some Bible teacher, small Pentecostal church in Florida, and started going there. And then the guy like left, went to, like, the preacher left, went to some conference. He came back an apostle now, and he was like,
oh dear.
Yeah. And he like never opened the Bible and was like, the words I speak were like that of God. And like then he started to tell my dad and my mom to abandon their family and only like spend time. And then we're like, out of here. Like,
at least y'all saw it.
Yeah, like, and then like 4 or 5 years later, he's like he's like a rabbi. And like he went from apostle to rabbi. It was just like the craziest thing. So
extreme loves more extreme.
Yeah, exactly. He just kept on going. So anyway, yeah. So avoided the cults, thankfully, but then did a lot of evangelicalism but always like
close enough.
Yeah, close enough. But always like, especially when I went to Bible college, like it was in Chicago, and Chicago really changed my world. And I was like
Florida, Chicago.
I know. Chicago really changed my world. I ended up living in like one of the most diverse neighborhoods in Chicago, called Rogers Park, or sometimes it was also known as Little India. And so all of my neighbors were from all different backgrounds. We'd have, everyone was in, we'd have a lot of people wearing hijabs and full just covering and stuff like that. And that was just part of my day, and it was like, I like, these people are nice, and like they're not enemies or whatnot, because I grew up in the the Bush era, the 2000s, where it's like everybody from the Middle East is our enemy and whatnot. So that really rocked my world, and it changed my whole perspective. The Black Lives Matter movement started after being there with Michael Brown. He got shot, and there were a bunch of people, even on my school campus, who were like, well, we need to protest and support Black Lives Matter. And I was there to join those protests and back that up, and always was trying to push for change wherever I could, no matter what, no matter where I found myself in these more evangelical environments. So, when Trump declared in 2016, I was just like, no, why are we supporting this guy? This is insane. Like, yeah, like, this is, why are we doing this? What the hell? So whatever. It's 2016. Yeah. And then it's like, 81% of evangelicals voted for Trump. Well, I'm the 19% that never did, and like never considered it for a second, back then. But anyway, so fast forward to 2020. I had lived in Florida, went to Florida, worked for a church for a few years, and then came up here and I'd left the job at the church, and like literally like the week of lockdowns, I was like ready to leave to move up here. So my dad was living up in Washington at the time, and I was going to live with him. The plan was I'm going to live with him for a few weeks, find a job, get my own place, restart my life up here. And well, that didn't really work. So like I ended up not finding a real full-time job until November because no one was hiring back then. And that's when I found the job down here in Portland. So
Great.
yeah, and so I moved there, and I moved here, and it's been great since then. I ended up spending a little bit of time. My last job was working for a federally qualified health center, which is all of our patients there are on OHP or uninsured. And though I did communications for them, it was a great opportunity to interact with patients and get to know their stories, and just more having the opportunity to serve the underprivileged. So that's always been my background, really. Like I've just always been on the ground trying to serve the underprivileged and working as hard as I can to do that.
So as I think about that, there's a difference between holding positions and actually engaging the issues.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And to be on the street, to be living in the most diverse neighborhood in Chicago, which is saying a lot, gives you a different perspective. So now these aren't just abstract ideas. These are the policies that affect the lives of the people that you've worked with, care about, loved, wanted to protect, couldn't, and want always for there to be more and more protection for those who are currently without protection, which is a lot of people.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a big, and in Portland, it's a lot of people.
Yeah, it is.
But I like when back in the political days, far, far in another galaxy, there was theory and practice, and I always came down on the side of practice. Theory's useful from time to time, helpful, but without practice, it's pointless. So I really appreciate that on the ground part, and that ability, again, as a candidate, to have talked to 47,292 people, gives you an edge on people who have great hearts, great ideas, but haven't actually confronted directly the world that exists and is fairly hidden. When I grew up in L.A., the freeways took you over the African American neighborhoods after over Watts, over
they do
East
that
LA.
now.
So
They do that
so
now
you could
here.
be a person of white skin privilege, which I don't know, maybe important in a way, perspective. You would never have to encounter anything uncomfortable.
Absolutely.
And random side story, but I was teaching in Africa when the Watts riots, insurrection, whatever happened, and I looked at the map and realized it was 5 miles from where I grew up.
Oh, okay.
I didn't know it was there.
Yeah.
I didn't know South Central existed.
Rodney King, right? The Rodney King riots?
It was before.
It was before that, okay.
Yeah, I can't remember. It's everything so far in the past I can no longer remember. But it's amazing to me. So what it makes me understand is that there's a kind of enforced ignorance by preventing there to be ways for different communities to work together, and the wedge is driven and driven and driven.
Absolutely.
And without the experience that I've had, it's very difficult to understand what's actually going on.
Yeah.
And when Spike Lee had his movie Do the Right Thing, I was imagining a sequel for liberals called Say the Right Thing. Slightly jaundiced perspective. But, so what you're talking about as I listen to you is that there's a real world with real problems completely disconnected from city government.
Absolutely.
Literally completely disconnected.
Yeah.
And the degree that people are mobilized and connected and re-empowered because they've been disempowered. I'm just going on one more little tangent. In Sweden, they have a concept called learned helplessness, which is the difference between how powerful you are and how powerful you feel.
Yeah.
And so working people, I worked with workers throughout my long careers, you're taught to believe that you're powerless.
Yeah.
And you're not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're right.
So it's really important to re-empower people. And we've suffered a lot, truly, regardless of what I've been talking about. It's a battered nation, and it's like people need hope. They need to feel that somebody gives a fuck.
Yep.
And if you do, it's obvious.
Yeah.
And might get you a vote or two.
Trying. Hopefully a few.
But I just feel so strongly, based on now, this is our second season of this podcast, that the initial one-on-one contact is the point of change. It can translate then into local government, potentially beyond, but it starts with that one-on-one contact, and without it, nothing connects.
Yeah.
There can be lots of good ideas, good programs, but unless people understand why they matter and that it matters to them, whether they know it or not, it's hard to move forward. So that's why I'm excited in general by this campaign, because it offers so many opportunities to do that.
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure out what I can get away with here in this community.
Yeah.
I can at least do one thing we haven't talked about.
Yeah.
Is this ranked choice voting through city council people is not people don't
understand it yet.
Understand it.
Yeah.
They don't know how important it is, for one thing. But also, I'm supposed to list 6 candidates? What do you expect me to do? Read something and
I know.
think?
Right. I thought I was just
asking
supposed to
what?
see the D or the R next to their name and fill in the bubble based on that, Like
exactly.
that's not how it's working anymore, which is great. It requires more civic engagement.
Re-educating the voting.
Yeah, that's going to be a big
It's
part
a big
of this
part
election.
of the success or failure of the progressive effort.
Yeah.
Seems to me is tied completely
100%.
to that process. And I think everyone we've talked to is a community organizer.
In some capacity, I would say so,
Yeah,
yeah.
I think
That's
so.
a good thing.
That makes me happy.
Yeah, well, and I'm definitely not the only one running still that's a community organizer, so we got a lot going on. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Like, the voter education is going to be such a key piece of this election. My plan is, as we go door to door, to not just pass out literature, but for my campaign, but also pass out information on ranked choice voting, because everybody that we come in contact with has to learn how this new system works.
So I will be able to
That's good.
be able to take a town hall meeting segment
Yeah.
and explain to people ranked choice voting, why it's important, and instill some excitement about it.
And
I can't support a candidate and get away with it. But
Do you know the ranked choice voting ballot measure 2 that's on the ballot this year?
No.
Yeah.
Do tell.
Yes. So there is a ranked choice voting ballot measure that would make ranked choice voting the standard for all of Oregon state and federal elections. So that's happening this year. And if you want, I can get you connected with Ranked Choice Voting Oregon. They can give you materials on how to share that with your community.
that'd be great.
Oh,
Yeah.
great.
And so that would be a great way to share. You can talk about the ballot measure too, which is not a candidate. So you can talk about the ballot measure and how ranked choice voting works.
I can talk about why I think it's important and get away with it.
Yeah.
What was that? Was that a website you mentioned? Ranked Choice Oregon?
Yeah. So I think it's rcvoregon.org or oregonrcv.org. We'll have to put it in the show notes. How about that?
Yeah.
And go from there. But yeah, no, it's it's just a ballot measure that's just going to make it the standard for the election across the state. So definitely need to get that done. I mean, I would love to next election cycle, particularly the congressional election, next 2026, be able to rank more people than just have to choose, one candidate. What we had to do in the third congressional race, which I'm incredibly disappointed, by the results there. That Sushila didn't get elected, but imagine if we had, we could do the undervote for Sushila, and I bet she would have pulled it off with RCV. Yeah.
So now, can you do a thing where pretend I'm a voter that you just met at a coffee shop?
Yep.
And I'm like, I don't understand this ranked choice voting. 6? What? Help me understand.
Yeah.
What would you say to me?
Yeah. I mean, the first thing is that you'll get to choose your 6 favorite candidates and rank them in order from 1 to 6. So that's the simplest thing, the simplest way to put it.
Do I have to choose all 6? Or what if there's only 3 I like?
Nope, you don't have to choose all 6.
Okay.
You have up to 6 to select from. So I do recommend voting for everyone who shares your values, though, because that way they will always that will help the people who you have share those values with get elected in some way. So if they're not your first choice, if they're somebody they're a progressive and you want progressives to go into office, rank 6 progressives, from first to last, or from 1 to 6, and that will make sure, no matter how else it goes for other people, those votes are going to help make sure that progressives get into office. So that's going to be the strategy that I'm going to want to explain to people is undervote whenever you can. So I have my 6 selected in my mind right now for my district. I know who's going to be number 1. Me.
And I was like, where are you in the list?
It's embarrassing if you rank 3rd.
On my own ballot.
You can still get elected.
Yeah, I know, right?
So I think what people need to understand is, why don't I just vote for the person I like?
Yeah.
So what's the answer to that question? What's the advantage of this complicated system?
Yeah, the advantage of this complicated system is that we actually get to choose the most popular candidate should win. And what I mean by that is the person who actually has the 3 people who have actually the majority of the votes in the whole system. So meaning so here's an example of just ranked choice voting. There's 3 seats and pretend there's a 4th person here, so it's you, me, anyway, there's 1, 2, 3, and then there's person 4, or we'll do A, B, C, and D. How about that? And so in this election there's 3 seats, and what we have to do is everyone needs to get 25% plus 1% of the vote to lock it in. So the advantage here is if I like candidate A and I like candidate B, but I like candidate D, and maybe I don't like C at all, then I can still just rank A, B, or A, C, and D, and I could leave C off the ballot. But what happens is, if somebody else is, if for some reason B at the end of the first round gets the most votes, they get 25% of the vote within the first round. Any votes that they get beyond that will be recalculated into the second round. So if you're voting for A rank number 1, those votes will still go ahead and get accounted for them as they go into the second round too as well. So that'll keep adding up. So that's the advantage, is every time there'll be a round of voting, those votes that were on top for your favorite person will be reallocated to them below, in the second and third round. Also, any votes that are in second round 2 and 3, those will continue to be added in those rounds. So you're helping everybody out who you want on your side.
Confused
I get it.
So 25% plus 1.
Yes.
And then you're automatically elected, because mathematically that's what you need.
Yeah.
So then, does that quantity of votes get taken off the board?
No, it gets reallocated. Yeah, so say in the first round, candidates A, B, and C. Say in the first round, candidate A actually got
this is helpful to me.
Yeah, 40% of the vote.
So all of the candidate A's votes, the second ranked person, then count in round 2.
Yeah, it counts in round 2.
Really important.
Yeah, it's so important.
I hadn't quite understood that yet.
Yeah. So if in round 1 A gets 40% of the votes, then the remaining, so it's minus 25%, that's 15. That 15% gets reallocated to their second choices, get reallocated in round 2. So that's how it goes. And so it's very helpful for everybody. So and so what's interesting about, there is reason that a lot of people have said, like, ranked choice voting is a failure because you only select in one person and you can just choose your favorite and it doesn't matter. In a multi-member district, it really does matter a lot.
Yeah.
I could make the vote for a single member district. I really could see, like, okay, you do have a point, because everybody in a single member district could just choose their favorite for the first round, and that's just going to go to them, the first person on top. So that makes sense. But in a multi-member district, you have to get 3 people, past that 25% mark, and then when it's even if we get down to like 15 people in this race at the end of the day, that you're not the first. I don't think there's any way in the first round anyone's getting 25% of the vote. I don't think that's possible. Maybe one person could, but I really doubt it.
Wait, so that doesn't mean we're going to get extra ballots in the mail. That means they go through it again.
Yeah, they go to the second round. Yeah, okay, they go to the second round. Second round. Yeah, second choices. So that's what I mean. It's the second choices. Yeah, that's what I mean by second round. So yeah, so say hypothetically Dan Ryan somehow, say he gets 35% of the vote in my district for the first round. Then we're going to have to go into a second round to do that. But even if no one hits the threshold, and here's the thing, if no one hits the threshold on the first round, then the people with the least amount of votes get eliminated that have no chance of getting to the 25%. Okay. So they get knocked off, and then those bottom choices get moved up to the second round, and then you choose from the second round who hit 25% if that happens. So
it is complicated.
It is complicated, but it is so much more fair.
I think. Yeah. I mean, the way I think about it is. If a candidate gets 25% plus one, what this prevents is one candidate getting an inordinate number of votes,
right?
Which means that the other candidates are chosen with a low number of votes.
Yeah,
so if somebody had 60% of the vote in the first round,
but
you're saying his second rank would go
everybody
to round 2.
So as soon as so if someone got 60% in the first so you did if someone got 60% in the first round the next that 35% that was past the threshold would just be reallocated their second vote to their second choice. And so it makes it so that everybody's favorites get selected.
Pretty cool.
Yep. And whoever basically has the most favorites win. So
now we got to convince everybody that complicated system really does end in that.
Yeah, exactly. It really does end in that, especially in a multi-member district. It really does. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I know we got to trust the mathematicians a little bit on that one.
Yes, we do. Yeah, there's some great resources out there. Rose City Reform has a really good video that explains ranked choice voting. You can also drop that in the description as well. I can send it to you. But they're fantastic, so it really explains it a lot better than I can.
No, that's fair. I'm kind of asking every candidate that because I figure probably most people are going to listen to their district candidates or someone they're interested in particular. But just in case, for anyone listening all the way through, I figure if all the candidates have explained this new system in their best way, there's going to be one way that's going to connect for everybody out there. They're like, okay, I get it. I can do this.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, it's going to be, again, back to voter education. Number one priority in this race. Absolutely.
Great. Yeah. Okay.
It really is.
Well, I think one of the things that Andrea, who of course we adore, amazing. The amount of interchange between the progressive candidates builds a cohort of people who know and trust each other and understand who knows about which issues. One, there's a general level of education that's raised for everybody because nobody comes in being an expert in every issue. Yeah. But then there's also just resources, and as she pointed out, if there are people who didn't get elected, but are really have a lot to contribute, they can be appointed to a commission, or they can be. So it actually also breaks down the isolation of progressive. This town is not that big, and the progressive community is not that connected. I mean, it's like, and it's identity politics definitely has a super downside It's important. The consciousness is important. But in practice, I mean, it's like, I understand nationalism really, really well and how important it is and how valid, but it won't help us win.
No.
Because white people, I don't know, have power.
Yeah.
So if we're going to stand up, we have to all be together. But it doesn't feel that way. When you're coming out of the experience of the oppression, it's pretty dominant. And it's like... But so that's a whole other level of organizing that needs to take place.
I think identity politics, or at least our floor of progressivism, in my opinion, needs to be being pro LGBTQ, pro trans rights, anti-racism, things like that's the floor. And then we need to actually go up to policy to be like real progressives. And what I feel like what we do in Portland is we have the mask on of, I'm not racist. I love gay people. I'm gay. Like they do that. And then when we go up to, okay, good, you're at that floor progressive, and then you go up to policy, it's just like, not really there yet. Like, we're not getting there. So that's the big difference for me, is that, like, I think progressivism obviously starts there, and it needs to move forward to being about policy now.
The word intersectionality I find wildly unhelpful. Why? Is the concept unhelpful? No. But I counted the syllables. There are 7 of them. I'm talking to a person on the street.
Oh, yeah. No, you can't say
dude,
that.
How do you feel about intersectionality?
Yeah.
So it has, what, cars? Traffic lights?
Yeah, exactly.
So that, for me, the issue for me is talking in a language that people understand.
Yeah, yeah.
And valuing their language.
Yeah.
That's a whole other thing.
Yep, that's the whole thing too.
Never mind.
Yeah, no, I agree.
It's a running joke on the podcast.
Oh, yeah.
When the word intersectionality comes up.
So I have this thing. Whenever I hear the word.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I'm sure we're still recording.
Could we talk about how oppressions are connected?
No, I do agree with that as an important thing, is using language that everyday people can understand. And I feel like many liberals, progressives, etc., like, don't plan on doing that. They want to bring people along, and I appreciate that sentiment, but you don't, like, bring a toddler along by, like, here's a dictionary, now learn to read. Like, you bring a toddler along by giving them a ABC book that has A, apple, B, banana, and we go from there,
Well, I think it goes back to what we were saying, is because it's the experience on the front lines with real people for whom these issues are not abstract.
Exactly.
White folks like to live up here.
Yeah.
They're not very comfortable down.
No.
Well,
not very comfortable.
For those of you who cannot see me, I'm pointing to my head.
Yeah. There. Yeah. White folks are not comfortable with that, but we've also been, I think you brought up such a great point earlier, talking about LA and the highway divide. Like, it's just been, we've been isolated to these struggles, and it's done intentionally in order to preserve white power in this country. And I experienced that as a kid, and that's when you go from living in a suburb in Florida and even a suburb in California for a little bit, but I was able to work in some working class neighborhoods in California, and then move to Chicago and be with working class people and the impoverished and disenfranchised folks there. That starts to break the bubble, and you realize, like, oh, we've been shielded from this on purpose. Like, that's what this has been this entire time. So, yeah, I mean, like, and you don't break that bubble by, like, I don't know, being polite, like, is, like, the best way to put it for me. It's just, like, I don't feel like you break that bubble by going, like, oh, like, the police are just mistreating minorities. I'm like, no, there's white supremacists in our police department, and it's a white supremacist institution, and we need to, remove the power from this institution, and they need to be held accountable. Like, you don't go like, it boggles my mind. But Samir and I have this thing where I will say shit like that, and then Samir's Indian, and he does the model minority thing and brings in his data and facts and sounds very like intellectual. And it's like, I like try it. It's like a 1-2 punch. I do like the breaking of some, like, I don't know how to, there's probably some word for it, but like just the whiteness of our culture. I'd like try to break that, shell that encases our minds, and then he goes in and brings like the data and facts, and it's a really fun thing. You gotta watch it sometime.
I think having had to deprogram yourself from other all-encompassing illusions opens your eyes to how those illusions get reinforced to the point that thing, there is no alternative. Tina, is what they used to say. Well, actually, there is. But we come to believe that, well, no, this is just the way it's supposed to be because it's the way it is, and what can I do about it?
Yeah, no, that is not. That I'm trying to get people to realize that's not the case. That has been hard. I mean, definitely, people are exhausted. People are apathetic. People don't want to throw on another thing onto their plate. Again, why we need to get out the vote, because the people that are these policies are going to help the most are distracted by trying to pay their bills, just like trying to be cool in a hot summer. Like these are the people that are absolutely like don't see the government as doing anything that could be helpful to them. Reaganism has completely obliterated the use of, the government for social good in most people's minds. So, what a fucking parasite that idea is.
Can I play off of that
a
little
go
bit?
ahead, yeah.
So it seems really clear to me that your activism, like your desire to make a better world, has brought you through all those different places you've lived and to Portland and to this moment where you're running for office. And like you said, you're kind of new to an elected office situation. And so I'm kind of curious how you in your own mind link your activism with this campaign. And then I'm curious to know some of the specific initiatives or policies that you kind of have in mind that to you align with those values of yours.
I think my campaign is an activist campaign. It just is. And I've never had any issues about doing that. It was always going to be that from day one. There was no way it was going to be anything else, because I feel if you're not being an activist, if you're not running an activist campaign, I'll say that you're not about having your boots on the ground, meeting with everyday people, running around. That's what I want to do. I wanted to lead people forward. That's the plan. It was never going to be about, I hope I can just get enough endorsements and get enough name recognition and get enough yard signs out so I can vote, the people will know my name and they can see me and vote. No, I was never going to do that. So when we had our pro-Palestinian protests, I shared about that on my social media and all everything that I was doing, because that's who I am. I was going to go to those protests whether I was running or not. So it was just one more thing to add to the list of stuff I had going on in the campaign. And also recognizing if people are out there organizing and mobilizing, to build those relationships with those people then, and if they want to come along with me in my campaign, caring about a local election later on, that's great. It's easier to get people moving when they're already going. So
inertia applies for people too.
yes,
All right.
inertia applies for people too. I think the one thing that we lack, and I'll get into policy in a second, but one thing that we lack in progressive space is actually like spaces to connect with people. Like the civil rights movement had a great opportunity with connecting with the Black church to go into spaces where Black people gathered, and they could gather together, share their message, and make a movement for real change in this country.
That seems so duh when you say it, but that's a great point.
That's exactly what happened. The thing that happened like a decade later is the moral majority decided to go into white churches, gather people together.
Oh, so you're saying that white people appropriated that?
That too. They did. gathered in white churches, and first it was around pro-segregation, around segregation, being pro-segregation, and then became again anti-abortion later on when they really wanted to bring the Catholics in and whatnot. So they have spaces like religion was nice because you have spaces where people gather.
Useful.
Yeah, it's useful. Religion is useful. There we go. That way, because you have spaces where people gather. Us progressives don't have, in the more secular kind, don't have necessarily our normal gathering spots.
Right.
So that's why I
Not
jumped
quite
in.
the same
Not
at
quite
the
the
brew
same.
pub.
So that's why I jumped into the protests too. It's just because that's where the people are going to be. And you're not going to be able to get a movement going without being where the people are. So so then when it comes to my policies and everything that I've chosen, I was saying earlier, it's all about things that would to one degree or another help me as a person. Like I made my campaign as being like, who's the person I would want to vote for, and so I just wrote out my policies, wrote out my ideas, and I'm running as the person who I'd want to vote for and to have an office. So it's not that difficult, and I also realized I'm not the only one feeling this way, and most of the time we do compartmentalize our thoughts and feelings around our society as it's just me only struggling with this. I only have this issue with depression and work and anxiety, and it's just no, we all are in this together and we're all connected, and so my whole...
That's like that bootstraps thing.
Yeah, it's
like,
the whole
oh no,
thing.
there's something wrong with me.
Yeah, exactly.
It's so destructive.
Exactly. It's the bootstraps thing that just makes us think about that. Go ahead.
Learned helplessness.
It's learned helplessness. Exactly.
Yeah.
Also,
it's
sometimes called surplus powerlessness.
Yeah, that's...
That's it. For working people, being demeaned and undervalued is all about
the game. Yeah.
Making them feel like meritocracy. The word sounds good, but it's not good because it means that if you don't success, it's your fault.
Yeah.
Well, it's not your fault because you're black, you're queer, you're poor, you have a disability. And so you can't be because they say anybody can be president. Yeah, one person, one can.
Yeah,
but not 300 million.
Yeah, no.
So I just feel like I think that message to people about what do we call this podcast? Speaking truth to goodness. It's like acknowledging the goodness in people, which doesn't get acknowledged.
Yeah,
it's actually a cheap trick.
Yeah, no, I mean...
It's like people really respond to being loved and respected.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, capitalism is dependent upon you having some sort of deficiency because that means their product can solve that problem for you, whatever product is being sold. Yep. So it's essentially a self-degrading psychologically system.
Yeah, I think that's
and
I kind of feel like ironically shouting "preach."
Yeah, well, that's fine. Go ahead. Yeah, it's a self-degrading what's the word I'm looking for? It's like fooling. I'm trying to say
deception.
Self-deception. Thank you. Auto-deception. Yeah, that's the word I'm looking for. It's like an auto-deceptive system where it's like you get programmed to be you're not good enough in this area, or you have this problem that you can't overcome, so here's my product in order to fix it, and etc. And as I hate this system, capitalist system, that's terrible, but I'm also like doing my best to like use it to get the message out there, because it's like that's the only way. And I feel like some progressives are like, oh, I don't want to get on social media. It's too much. Like I can't manage
I know
it.
someone who says,
yeah, that
would be Patty.
Yeah,
marketing is corrupt, but it works.
Mm-hmm.
We should use it.
Yeah, absolutely. Nail it. Marketing is corrupt. It works. Matter of fact, my the school I went to was one of the founders one of the presidents was the founder of the Quaker Oats company, and did a phenomenal job. I mean, like phenomenal. I mean, was terrible. Was a terrible person. He made the Aunt Jemima character.
Oh dear.
So he was a terrible person. But did a phenomenal job like marketing like the school and their products to be a huge basically source of truth for everybody, and convincing people that they had a deficiency in truth or some way. And,
if it's Quaker, it's gonna be okay, right?
I was like, sinful nature, you mean?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I mean, that's the point. I mean, like, so he literally just took he ran this the successful Quaker Oats company and just applied all of his thing to religion, all the skill sets to religion. And it can be happening vice versa. And like we can take our progressive values and market them to people, which I think will help overcome them. I think capitalism is a self-sabotaging system, and I've seen this before because it's like Catholicism was a self-sabotaging system, and then suddenly you get the Protestants. Protestantism is a self-sabotaging system, and then you get secular humanism out of that. It all like you wouldn't have where we are today without Martin Luther nailing his 95 Theses on that door, and Gutenberg without Wittenberg, not Gutenberg. Gutenberg is the press. Sorry, Wittenberg. Without without him challenging authority, and then that just gets everybody to keep challenging authority until we start challenging everybody's authority. It's just this constant cycle. So you go from the Protestant Reformation to the Enlightenment, and to now. I think now we're questioning. Okay, capitalism. Not good. Like let's question this. We thought we could never overcome the divine right of kings. But we did 250 years ago. So why can't we overcome capitalism now and move down that road? And will we overcome capitalism in my generation? I don't know, but I'm gonna try. I'm sure you tried for years. And here's the torch. Give me the torch. Thank you. I appreciate it.
So do I, man.
Yeah.
So do I.
And now we're gonna go on.
There are people coming up. I mean, I could cry because I gave more. 60 years of my life. Mm-hmm. Did I move the needle? Yeah, micro. Tiny bit. Did I fix it? No. Did I want to fix it? Yes.
Yeah.
Is there such a thing as fixed?
So there's yeah. Yes, I'm an acquired taste. But the idea is, if there's no one coming up behind to take that torch, what the fuck have I suffered for 60 years for?
Well, we're here.
So there's a little selfishness there. It's like, that's a totally different conversation. Never mind. Let's go back to the election. But I think it's unfortunate that because of the rapidly changing culture, hanging out with Patty's tweeners teaches me about a world I never knew. That continuity is not understood because the form of the reaction against is different, and so we have to find some common language, which is pretty damn difficult. Yeah, because the experience and the world has changed so dramatically. But I'm committed to doing it. Yeah. To the pathetic extent that maybe we'll have some limitations, but
give yourself a break.
Yeah, give yourself a break. We're fighting,
Okay, I could use a break.
Yeah. We're fighting.
That's my issue. That's not the issue of the election. So, Why did you decide to run?
Yeah. Well,
were you drinking heavily? And
well, we can do this.
A bet?
No, we can do this, and we can pivot this right back into policy, which is, like I decided to run because first of all, like I say, like I'm a renter. I am, democratic socialist. That like.
Did you say rector?
Renter. Sorry,
I'm
a
okay.
renter, not a rector.
I was like, oh no, are you super religious still? And I've totally like been
no, I'm not a rector. No, I'm a renter, and I'm a democratic socialist. But like, I'm like, so I'm seeing like a progressive movement in this country. Like, I think still trying to like break through. We've had some successes. We had the UAW's big labor wins. We're seeing more unions formed every day. Like we had two pretty successful, but we had the two Bernie Sanders campaigns. Like this is a time where I think we can just continue to push. I think we can have some real breakthroughs. So seeing that, but then like personally going like, if I can do it, like I think I can share ideas that people would agree with, like policies and just ideas about this world that people would agree with, and we can start to actually build a movement here. And then it's ranked choice voting. So it was never going to be just about me and bring everybody along with, to me so that I can have the most votes and win, or get the third most votes and win, It was going to be, okay, I can bring people along with me. I can find my allies in the candidates and we can work together, and it's not going to just be me out there on the field. So all of that, like looking at the field, looking at what's happening, I was like, okay, I feel like I have the skills, especially in media and stuff like that, to make this, make this happen. So, and I would just want a better city for everybody. That's my slogan, a city that works for everyone. So between all of that, I said, okay, I'm going to drop my name into the race and see what we could do from there.
Isn't the Portland city, the trucks that go around?
Say a city that works. Yeah.
You're twisting that a little
bit. Yeah.
The city that works for everyone.
The city that works for everyone.
I like that.
Yep.
That's great.
Yeah. I have done communications
that
before.
Should work. For everyone.
Yeah. Well, yes, that's where we're at now. We're at a city that should work for everyone, and we're going to try to get to a city that works for everyone. So.
And how would you do that?
And how would I do that? It's
Yeah.
great pivot. So I have a couple policies that I like to highlight, and I'll do I have 12. I have what I call my Pro Portland Plan, which is 12 policies that I'd like to fight for as a city councilor. I don't know. Shall I go into all 12? Should I give you a top 6 or something like that? I don't know. How much time do we have? I'll wing it and see where we go.
Yeah.
So first one is my renter's bill of rights. I'm the renter, as I said before. We have essentially a policy in the city that if a landlord increases rent over 10% annually, then they're required to give their renter relocation assistance. That is what it is said right now. I don't know about you. I don't get a 10% raise every year. I just, yeah. So at best, 2-3%, in accordance with inflation, if you're lucky. And you go from there. So I think that needs to be my renter's bill of rights. First thing is just propose that to drop down to 5%. If a landlord raises rent over 5%, they'd be required to give relocation assistance. So just
how about if an employer gives less than 5% increase every year, then they're in trouble? Can we do that?
Yeah, well, we could. Yeah, there's a lot of things that we could do too that we can talk about in a second. But I was just trying to make this plan really simple. The next two things are no evictions for non-payment of rent during winter months, and no evictions for non-payment of rent during the school year for families with students. So very simple, like no child, first of all, we have no ability to really keep warming shelters open. It's been a disaster by the county, so keeping people in their homes during winter is the best option. And no child needs to worry about where they're going to, lay their head at night when they're trying to get an education. So there's two really simple things. On top of that, the DSA, the East County Rising, and what's the Renters Action Network are three organizations that are putting forth a Renters Bill of Rights for candidates to sign on to. I have signed on to it. Mine was 3 points. They added another 6 that are pretty much the same. So I've signed on to it and would support that renters' bill of rights as well.
Great.
The next big policy that I want to see done is what we were talking about a little bit earlier, is stopping the sweeps. So it's to stop the sweeps, and it's not about, obviously, housing and homelessness is a huge issue in our city, which is why we talked about the Renters' Bill of Rights, because we need to keep people from getting onto the streets. If they're on the streets and we want to get them off the streets, sweeps does not solve that problem. Sweeps just keeps moving people around. I mean, it's actually a pretty good term from it. It's just moving your dirt around. And it's not, I mean, not comparing people to dirt, not doing that, but it's moving stuff around, and it's not actually solving the problem. So we've spent over $22 million in the last few years on contracts with Rapid Response BioClean that is, just essentially taking people's stuff away, making them start over every time that happens. Stuff's getting stolen out of their facilities, because they're supposed to have an ability for people to come retrieve their items. But people often who go try to retrieve their items find that their stuff's been stolen, or maybe it was trashed when it's not really trash, something along those lines. So it's not helping anybody. So I want to say, take the money that we're going to spend on sweeps, which keep people homeless, and open emergency temporary night shelters across the city. And that can be done. The main way to do it is have the mayor declare a state of emergency in housing, and then we can open up shelters by a federal law, which essentially allows you to essentially use a version of eminent domain to say hey, we need to use the space for a shelter because of an emergency. If there was a disaster, something along those lines, and say, there's a big earthquake and the whole the west side sunk into the river, which is going to happen. If those people need shelter who survived, that they could come over to the east side and sleep in church at night and something like that. Or the whole Moda Center could become a shelter, something like that. So we would use that emergency provision to open up shelters to get people off the streets. So
can I bug you a little bit about that one? So I've come across this idea and actually spoke with an unhoused man this week, outside of the new seasons, where it seems like the idea of a warming shelter is actually not an acceptable idea to all the people who are out in a tent or out on the street itself. And so I'm kind of curious, I see why that is a good step for sure. But then what kind of thoughts do you have around creating multi methods for those folks who aren't interested in a communal warming shelter? Yeah.
So the gist of this is creating solving essentially what's an immediate need. So first of all, I don't believe in opening these shelters and then forcing people to go into them. Okay. First with that, I don't believe in that at all. I want to do this, and then here's an option for you to be able to get some shelter for the night, and low barrier to entry. Very little requirements at all, rules at all. So that we wouldn't be having to kick people out all the time and all this stuff. So just low barrier. And I actually volunteered at a warming shelter that the Lloyd Center became for the February storm, not this past February, but the one previous. Okay. And I was in the Lloyd Center, and I mean, I've done a lot of work around homeless people and the unhoused, and it is that was one of the best experiences I ever had, where just people were able to come in. I'm like, hey, how's it going? And they're like, what do you need me to do? They immediately got to as I was at the front table, and they're like, what do you need me to do? And I'm like, nothing. Just go find a cot. And then they were just all shocked. They were just like, what? Are you kidding me? I'm like, yeah, no, you can just go find they were actually mats. Go find a mat on the ground, and that's your spot.
So they usually end up having to run a gauntlet just to get a place to stay.
Oh, absolutely. Okay. They have to give them a name, ID, or whatever, and sometimes they don't have an ID, and then all these barriers. And I'm like, no, we need to set up emergency quick, low barrier shelters to get as many people off the streets as night that we can. Is it going to solve all the problems? No. We need to expand shelter access. We need to expand long-term housing. There's so many things that we can talk about, and I can't, we're on point 2 here of a 12-point plan, and this is just talking about the immediate band Band-Aid that we could put on the situation, and
Fair.
that's just not being done. So
I
What were you gonna say?
love the mentality which says if we just ignore it, it'll go away.
yeah, that's the plan right now. Or we can ignore it, or we can arrest them out of our sight, and that's how it goes.
Kind of seems like what they're doing is just keeping homeowners happy.
Yeah.
So the homeowners will stay and
Yeah.
keep property values up.
Right.
I mean, it
Yeah.
kind of seems like that's the
Look,
reason.
I don't want people sleeping on the streets. Like, this should not be like the solution of arresting people out of houselessness is not going to work. You're still going to have the problem. Like, they're not going to get out of there. So we have to actually give people shelter to not be on the streets. So your property values will go up. Like, I'm all for your property values going up, but it's not going to go up if we're just shoving people around the city.
So here's a
and trying to
wild
clean up a
thought
mess.
that just occurred.
I did quotation marks for clean up the mess.
If this complete rehaul of city government works, people might be able to have done something that was impossible 10 years ago, which was to imagine what you needed to do to prevent the homeless crisis, which is now literally unsolvable. 10 years ago it was solved, 20 years ago, but there's no vision about what's necessary to keep a city vital. And it's maddening.
Yeah.
Maybe this change of government creates the possibility for not long-range planning, but just imagination about what are the issues that are going to be facing this city because of, climate change in 5 years.
Yeah.
You better start thinking about it now because, like when it's 2 weeks out, it's impossible to respond.
We're only working
So
on
there's
this
no
year's
vision.
budget.
There's
Gene.
no
I know,
vision.
right?
No vision around houselessness. No vision around people who can't afford to pay exorbitant prices to buy a house. Eventually, no one's going to be able to buy a house, and the market will collapse completely, as near as I can tell. No.
No. Corporations
Just
will
gonna go
own
on?
them all.
Yeah, corporations will own it all.
It's already underway.
That's how it
I'm
goes.
so relieved.
That's the plan. I can tell.
I can sleep at night now. I know what's going to happen.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, we're. The more and more I talk about this is the one policy that gets me the most frustrated because we're not the only city that has this problem. It's completely in my opinion, it's willful incompetence that this problem exists, and it exists because they're trying to get more moderate, conservative, leaning candidates elected. Like if this problem was solved while more progressive people were in power, then they would be winning. So that's ultimately the issue. And then the A wants to get all the money they can, and they want to be the ones that are dealing with the homelessness because they want more resources.
What's the PPA?
PPB or PPA, Portland Police Association, which is the union of the Portland Police Bureau. So yeah,
Erroneously sometimes referred to as a union. Actually a clone of the National Rifle Association.
Oh, well, there you go.
I mean, it is. I mean, basically, as a person who works with unions, I'm appalled.
Yeah.
I mean, I can barely hold my... Never mind.
No.
I don't understand the building trades. They should know better than to oppose every progressive idea on principle.
Yeah, anyway, we won't get into unions right now because I'm starting to learn just how conservative the leadership of unions are starting to be, and then the people on the ground are much more progressive, and that's a whole other thing we can get into. But I won't go into that because we're trying to stick on policies. So we'll pivot.
We got 2 of 12, yeah?
Yeah, we got 2 of 12. I'll just go through them. I have not talked about these a lot, so I'll just go through them real quick.
Oh, please.
Other thing is just paying off medical debt. So cities like New York and Cincinnati have put money aside through and used resources to pay off medical debt in their cities. I think New York paid off like $2 billion of medical debt. They buy the medical debt from collectors, pennies on the dollar, through a company called, you might have heard before, RIP Medical Debt. It's been changed now to Undo Medical Debt. They have a new name. What?
R.I.P. for real.
Yeah, like R.I.P. medical debt, like rest in peace.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I mean, they changed their name recently, so
Yeah.
so now it's called undue medical debt. But yeah, so we need to help people economically. I mean, it's one of the leading causes of bankruptcy in our country, so I think we can put some money aside to help erase the medical debt for Portlanders to give them a leg up. It's really simple. Other thing is a pilot program that you might like this. It's called Save Our Seniors, and it's a universal basic income pilot program that I would want to do for a year for Portlanders 60 plus that are on the verge of homelessness, and basically that plan would be to give them $750 a month to see how this would affect their lives. So we would do
That's a really great idea I hadn't heard before.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to get stuff out there. A lot of people just like the Renters' Bill of Rights, which is, of course, a huge deal. So that'll help everybody, So, but yeah, I want to just run the pilot program. St. Paul, Minnesota did one. Houston has done one. This is nothing that other cities haven't tried, and we should try it out ourselves. So let's keep going. Yeah. So that's kind of like that's actually like I call it my housing and economic justice leg of my plan. The next one is climate change and transportation. The first one that I have is a network of urban trails. Chris, it's actually a plan that's already done that you can find on Bike Portland if you want to check that out. It's a network of protected pedestrian bike lanes that are connected and crisscross the city. It would really help us in our efforts to bring up biking to 25% of our trips by 2030, and we'd be able to help decarbonization in the city of Portland and the state of Oregon. So I really would like to do that. Paying for that is another thing. Like people always ask me how you pay for it. From that point, I would just say, since it's something new, grant money is probably just going to be there for that, because they federal government, state government, they love spending money on new projects. So I think the grant money would be there if we can find it and petition the state, the federal government for it. Okay. So depending on who's in office. So let's just not get into that. Let's just not get into that right now.
No, we're not going to. We're
not going to go there. Next thing on that is fairless transit, fighting for fairless transit. I cannot do that as a city councilor, but we are the biggest city in the state of Oregon, the economic hub, and we have a lot of power in Salem. And I would like to propose through our office at least a year trial of fairless transit on TriMet. Mm-hmm. Right now, fares have only cover 7% of the TriMet budget at $68 million. And that is not, I know it sounds like a lot of money, but that is not a lot of money. The TriMet's budget is $1.75 billion next year. And then I did the math, and people can correct me if I'm wrong, but it's even going to be less than 7% to cover that next year. So paying for fares probably costs, having fares probably costs us more money than we're even bringing in on fares at this point.
To manage it.
Yeah, because you have to manage it, you have to enforce, have fare enforcement, all of these things. And honestly, our whole system's set up to just this isn't like Chicago where there's turnstiles and gates and stuff. We can just walk on to the platform very easily. So this is a system that we could just implement pretty quickly and at least give it a trial for a year. So I would use my position to push for that.
I think Portland might have had a fairless.
They had Fairless Square. Everyone keeps talking to me about Fairless Square. Oh, do you want to bring Fairless Square back? And I'm like, that sounds good. I would like just, everyone to have free transportation. There were some issues with that. The biggest one is that, so you could just jump on TriMet downtown and then go to the first stop outside of each district or each line for free. But, after that, then people would have to, are you checking the fares for everybody? There was it was a whole mess. So I don't feel like bringing that back. That doesn't actually solve the problems that I'm trying to solve in the first place. So
and isn't a big part of who needs it to be fairless would be people who live more in East County and stuff and bus in for work.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Okay. I mean, people live in East County, and then people who live downtown. And then I think it would make it easier for people to come into the city from the suburbs because they don't have to pay for it. It'd be cheaper, and they can jump on the train. So I think there's lots of economic benefits to this, and we can make the case for it with the state. So also, we could also make the case for it with Metro, because Metro has a one-time use button of taking over TriMet. They can actually pass legislation to take over TriMet and govern it themselves. So,
Really?
Yeah. So we can maybe convince Metro too. So there's multiple ways to go about this, but I would want to push for that. The next thing I would want to see is an increase to the PSEF tax, which is, all know the Portland Clean Energy Fund. I'm trying to get this worked out to whether it's an initiative that I can bring to a city councilor or it has to go back to the voters. But I would just like to see we right now have a 1% tax on retailers that make over $1 billion a year nationally. That is the PSEF tax right now. And then there's a 1% tax on companies that make over $500,000 a year locally. I don't want to increase that tax. I just want to double the tax on retailers that make over $1 billion a year from 1% to 2%. And I do have to figure out again how that's done. And I would like that 1%. I'm not going to take any money away from the 1% that's being used now, because right now PSEF is primarily used for just funding grants for projects for nonprofits and things like that. Want to keep that going. That new 1% of money that would come in would go straight to like citywide improvements that need to be done for climate resilience and climate change, and just so many things that we need to do. And to give you an example, there's a $4 billion backlog in maintenance for PBOT. That's $4 billion with a B of backlog in maintenance. I don't know where that money's coming from. So we need money to pay for maintenance. Fund new projects, again, I think can be funded by the federal government and state government if possible. But maintenance needs to be afforded, it needs to be paid for, and it's all climate-related issues. Transportation and climate change are completely connected. That's why this section of my plan is called Transportation and Climate Change. And I think what we need to do is make sure that we have our roads repaired, because as we transition to electric cars, those cars are heavier than gasoline cars, so that actually causes more damage to the road. So we need to repair our roads and make them ready for more electric cars.
I'm learning so much today.
We could do like the rest of the world and, I don't know, build smaller electric cars.
Well, yeah.
So like if in China you could buy one for like $9,000.
Oh yeah, no, I agree with that too. Absolutely.
I mean, it's insane.
Yeah.
I mean, every car, it's random, but they start out small and economical, and then they get bigger and bigger and bigger.
We do love our big
expensive
cars here.
I was going to say America.
Yeah, no, it's true. It's America, but we really do need to have the money and the resources. Excuse me. To afford our repairs, afford the infrastructure to move into a new system. So I'm really excited about that. I think that the I think that the PSEF tax can tax the companies that have been benefiting, and been benefiting is not even the best word, have exploited our environment for so long and exploited the workers, and they need to pay their fair share of redoing, our system. So yeah. Absolutely. So here, and then the last part of this, it's urban trails. What was it? Fairless transit, PSEF, and then it was I think it's the pedestrian only zones. So just opening up more pedestrian only zones throughout the city, making sure that, there's the Oregonian had a list of 19 pedestrian only zones, and that could open up, and I would just say open them all up, because pedestrian only zones will put less cars on the road, slow down traffic, all of those things, and does a lot of businesses do better in those areas because there's more foot traffic walking back and forth. And there's some places like Mississippi just needs to be that like chunk of Mississippi from like Fremont all the way up to, I think it's
Sheridan?
Maybe Sheridan. No, it's not Sheridan. It's like just past where Matt's Barbecue is. I think that whole like lane could be taken out, be pedestrian only, and it would be because it's a pain to drive down anyway. So if it's already a pain to drive down, we should just replace it. So the next part is my community safety and development portion of my plan, which the first thing is just fully funding the Portland Street Response. It's a no-brainer on 100 levels, but like the biggest thing for me is we can get funding from Medicaid to pay for these services. All we have to do is start 24/7 service across the city, and then we could apply for Medicaid funding and we'd be able to get it. And then we would actually be able to bring in money, and it would end up actually not costing us. We'd bring in more money than it costs at the end of the day. And so it's been completely political, the reason that why this program hasn't been set up. And other cities have come here, like Seattle, I think DC as well, and they started their own programs, and they're already at 24/7 service, and they're doing well. So it's ridiculous that we're just still stuck in this place. So
one of the things that's exciting is that each candidate brings a certain set of unique ideas. I mean, there's a baseline ideas that are commonly shared, but it's like the richness of having a real conversation as opposed to a political negotiation.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
What's happened with 4 citywide city councilors.
Yeah.
Again, if I could walk, which I can't, I'd be out going door to door.
Well, get you on some phone time if you want to do that. Happy to do that for you.
So, Jamie Partridge, who's sort of, in some ways, the voice of DSA.
I know, yeah.
I once accused him of elder abuse for making his parents phone bank. So phone banking may not be high on my list.
Well, it's okay. It's fine. We'll get some other people out there. That's the plan.
It's elder abuse to make your parents phone bank.
Jerry's got 270 people in this building.
Oh, yeah, we can find somebody. Perfect. I'm making notes. So the next one is on this list is the basically putting in the recommendations for the the Police Accountability Commission. And I'm not sure if you're aware, but the city council back in November basically gutted their recommendations and made it so that the chief of police does have the final say in how officers are disciplined and things like that. So just wanting to put in the actual recommendations and from the Police Accountability Commission, and making sure that is a true civilian oversight commission and not just the police getting to do whatever they want to do still, and saying, oh, look, we have a commission that's overseeing them. Like, no, you're not. Not at all. It's absolutely
that you're pulling
ridiculous.
the strings of. We see
you. Oh, I know, exactly. And I'll get to my. I've gone through all 12. This is fantastic. So I'll get to my next one, which is, if you're familiar with CPTED, it's crime prevention through environmental design. It's not a real fancy, like, easy thing to say, but
what prevention?
Crime prevention through environmental design. I'll give you the gist of it. Like, an active, flourishing community is a community where there isn't much crime taking place. So it's about investing into high crime areas and putting in resources and opportunities for those areas to be a place where the community can gather. I got 2 studies that are on my website that show you that one of them actually got an award from the Justice Department, and they're not just studies; they're actual projects that happened. One in Houston, I forget where the other one was, but you'll find it there. And they just changed there's like a basketball court in this area that was just very high crime, and they added in like gym, like park equipment, and they added in places for food trucks to set up, and they added in like a new pavilion and all the things. Kind of made like a little park, like commerce area combined. and the crime rate dropped. And this setup does much more to deter crime than this philosophy, I should say, does much more to deter crime than just more police do. So, and there's studies behind it, and it's not a new idea. Matter of fact, it's actually policy in the city. So I actually bring that up. That there's the links on my website as well. That this is SEPTED is actually a policy the city has, but it's just not implementing it and using it to its fullest advantage. I think it needs to be like, hey, like we're looking at this first to solve this problem instead of, oh, hey, we're just going to go to more police.
Well, right. It sounds like the human version of doing well care instead of sick care.
Yeah. Oh, exactly. Yeah, absolutely.
I always like to talk about Camden, New Jersey. Doesn't everyone?
Yeah.
Camden, New Jersey was the most violent city in America. And they went to a true community policing structure and had, in over 10 years, crime dropped 85%.
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
It's in Camden. I mean, in other words, it's not like let's take a little town and try this. It's let's taste the murder capital of the United States.
Yeah.
And that model is there.
Yeah, it is. And didn't they replace their police department?
Don't know about it.
Yeah. Didn't they replace their police department too?
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, defund the police was one of the worst slogans ever. Reimagine the police. Reimagine the community. So I think the right plants these really bad names.
Yeah.
So that people are terrified. Let's defund the police. No, let's make the police responsive to community needs. Yeah. It's like, stop it. The marketers need to come in and fix it.
Yeah.
Oh, they're marketing.
They're marketing just the other way.
That's right.
We need our marketers.
Yeah, I know, exactly. And then just last but not least, I guess, I don't know if you were familiar with the Community Budgeting for All campaign that was started a few months ago. Community Budgeting for All campaign that had stared a few months back.
Is there another name for that?
Participatory budgeting.
Yes, I have heard of that.
So the participatory budgeting campaign that started a few months back, I was like a full supporter of that. They decided to not push for a ballot initiative this year, but I loved the idea, so it's on my plan to initiate a form of participatory budgeting in the city.
It in some ways makes more sense to wait. The transition from one form of city to another is going to be a shit show.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's be clear.
Yeah.
And where are they going to? They're going to have city councilors in motels because there's no place.
Well, there's going to be office space in City Hall. The thing is, will there be enough office space, and will we have constituent offices or district offices? That's still to be determined. So
some of these things are going to require this to get through the transition, so that this new form of government actually works. That they figured out all, because it's going to be confusing and complicated and lots of entrenched interests.
Yeah.
So maybe it's okay to put that off for a year. We have this new city council in place.
Yeah. Well, if I get elected, I'm happy to work on it with them to see if we can get it passed as an ordinance, so we don't have to go through the process of a ballot measure. So that's why it's still on there for me. So, and obviously, and if you don't know what participatory budgeting is for the listeners, just basically we would allocate a percentage of the general funds of the budget for people to submit requests for projects. Submit their own project requests for, and then people would actually vote on what projects get selected and where the money is spent. So, just a way for the community to engage more in the process and find a way that their needs are met, because it's the community, requesting these resources. So, I'm all for it and want to continue to just push that forward. So,
absolutely,
yeah.
So, just to kind of bring this all together.
Yeah.
You've touched on a lot of things that the city is facing that could make a person pretty pessimistic if they wanted to really take on all of that. And so I'm kind of wondering, knowing all that you know about what's going on in the city and understanding the systems that have to be dealt with in order to make changes, what gives you hope And then if you want to cap it off by telling everyone where they can find out more about you.
Sure. So what gives me hope? I think right now what gives me hope is just seeing and like meeting more and more people where that we are on the same page, like you two and so many others across the city, where I start to share ideas like the PSEF increase and like a renter's bill of rights, and then where going back to where, like I said, like policy is important for progressives now. Like it's not about just saying, okay, well, great, I'm glad you support LGBTQ people. That's awesome. That's the floor, not the ceiling, but we need to help everyday Portlanders. So when I actually share my policies with people, I do get that light in their eyes reaction a lot of the time. And that shows me that's where I'm touching somebody's heart, to use an old evangelical terminology. I'm touching somebody's heart, and that's where I know like the hope lies in actually doing the things that will make people's lives better, and they want to see that out of their politicians. And so my goal going forward is to get as many of those people to believe that my campaign can bring hope and bring some change to the city. And that's going to be a very, very hard, long fight, because I shouldn't say nobody, but a lot of people are not feeling that way right now. There's a lot of disenfranchised, frustrated, even seasoned fundraisers that I've talked to in this race being like, this is the worst fundraising I've ever had to do. Yeah. So like, okay. It's hard out there for people who are especially wanting to bring big change, real change to Portland. It's going to be a battle, but I would rather fight and leave it all on the field at the end of the day than say, oh, I just sat back when we could change the city forever, so my plan is to get out there and every day, and we're gonna do the best we can and leave it all on the line. Yeah, go ahead. What do you say?
Sounds good to me.
I thought that's something else.
No, I mean, I think though underlying that glib statement is the solutions are available.
Yeah,
it's not as if there was no way forward. Mm-hmm. There are 100 ways forward.
Yeah.
Political will is needed. So the city needs to recapture a kind of visionary political will as opposed to an entrenched, protect my interests perspective.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And it's like what's the counter slogan to there is no alternative? Another world is possible.
Yeah.
Still.
Yeah. Oh, it is.
Time's running out.
Yeah.
But for now.
Yeah.
And I think for me, my daughter's very involved in climate change. It's like, it's still, we could stop the bleeding if we wanted to. It's not that there aren't strategies that will mitigate, there aren't strategies, for carbon, whatever.
The economy's not going to be ruined.
But people have lost hope, and so they're just hunkering down, watching TV, and recreational drugs.
Yeah.
And hoping it'll all be over soon. No, not going to happen.
Yeah. Well, what's the worst part is it's not going to all be over soon. It's going to just get worse. The climate's going to get worse.
Stop the bleeding.
The economy's going to get worse. People are going to be more and more disenfranchised. Like, everyone's like, oh, it'll all be over soon. I'm like, no, this is like, unless it's like nuclear World War III or a meteor, it's not going to be all over soon. So it's just going to slowly like get worse over the next couple decades unless we start to turn the ship around. And in Portland, we have an incredible opportunity to do that, like with this new election system, and we have to push forward to get it done. And yes, I know, I told this one supporter who has actually been really involved with Cop Watch for a while, and I was just like, I know you're tired. I get it. Like, I get it. Like, and I've been, like, in Portland, I've only been here a couple years. Like, I'm new. I'm fresh faced. I got the energy. Just let me go take this across the line.
We'll drag you down into the slime with the rest of us. It's just a matter of time.
Let me
come
try
back in 2 years and be hopeful.
Yeah, and look, if we could have a President Trump and a Mayor Gonzalez and a conservative moderate council, and I'm gonna be very, very, very sad. And then the next day, I'm going to go on vacation. And then the next day, to rest. And the next day, I'm going to come back to Portland. A week later, come back to Portland. And I'm going to start up again. And just try to get things changed. Be the most annoying person I could be to Mayor Gonzalez I could ever be, could ever happen, So it's not gonna stop us. But we don't have to live in that future. We can actually prevent that from happening.
Right.
So my friend, one of my activist friends, Holly Nair, said in the 60s, 70s, if we won everything we wanted today, tomorrow would be the first day of defending it.
Yeah, that's
and
true too.
People keep thinking you can win victories and you're done. And that's what happened, I think, in civil rights, is there was a sense that we had won the battle, and the battle had just begun because we didn't understand the nature of oppression that exists. And, so here's the last piece of really good news. Those of us who believe that are in it together.
Yeah. Absolutely. That's good news.
And if you're on the edge, you get to hang out with really cool people.
Yeah. It's very true.
So thank you for being one of the really cool people.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank
and
you
this
for
whole
being
process
very cool people.
Really, inspiring.
Yes, it is.
Really inspiring.
Yeah, it's nice to meet more people. I'll give you some more information about my campaigns.
So Chris Olson,
Yeah.
District 2.
Yeah.
Can you tell all the listeners where they can find out more about you and connect with you?
Yeah,
Your campaign?
Yeah, so you can just, my website is olsonforpdx.com. You can check that out. My social handles are all at Olson for PDX. So
can we spell Olson for everyone?
Oh yes, and it's Olson Olson, not like the Olsen twins.
You're Swedish, not Norwegian.
It's a Danish actually. But here, fun fact. I was just telling somebody the other day. My great grandmother and my grandfather, on my dad's side, which is Olson. My great grandmother spelled her name was also Olson, but it was an E-N.
Yeah.
So she got married to my great grandfather. I just had to change one letter.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, I know. It's so funny. So I don't know. Maybe somewhere back along the line I'm related to the Olsen twins. Who knows? So. But yeah, olsonforpdx.com. I'm also pushing to get to my 250 donors. I would appreciate that. And yeah, I appreciate you all having me. It was a great time. Thank you.
Thank you so much for being with us and sharing all about you.
Well, this was fantastic. It was a great conversation.
So much.
Really, it was great.
We get to have fun.
Yeah, you do.
I know. I'm appreciating it so much. I feel like I learn about something new every candidate, and just wow, it's a big job you're applying for here.
Yeah, it is a big job.
Well,
thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much, Chris, for being here, for agreeing to come to our roundtable of candidate discussions. Thank you for joining us on Speaking Truth to Goodness. Today, we've had the enriching opportunity to hear from Chris Olson, whose campaign is a beacon of progressive values aimed at transforming Portland. Chris's discussion today went beyond typical campaign rhetoric to get into how personal conviction and professional experience intertwine in his fight for a just and sustainable city. As Chris outlined his strategies for housing justice, climate resilience, and community safety, it became clear that his activism is deeply woven into every policy proposal he champions. His commitment to no fossil fuel money and enhanced community safety measures illustrates a forward-thinking approach to governance that prioritizes people over profit and integrity over convenience. We hope this conversation inspires you to engage more deeply with local politics and to support candidates who reflect your values. Remember to interact with us by liking, commenting, and sharing this episode. Join us next time as we continue speaking truth to goodness, because goodness is all around.